You think you wouldn't have to do the last part in there, do your job, but people
Yeah,
are people.
people are people.
Yeah,
That
right.
that's for sure. We are back. I had a couple more questions. When you do your quoting,
Yeah.
do you do just a board foot price straight up, or do you do like linear with bead, and do you get intricate into it, or is it just kind of like a board foot price?
It's usually, it depends on who's supplying the board. So that's a big thing here because typically there's a hanging crew and then there's a finishing crew here where we are. So
Okay.
the hangers will be separate and then the finishing will be separate. And then the board sometimes is covered. Either the builder is paying for it or we're supplying the board. So
Okay.
there's that goes into it, but it's a board footage price. So we go off of the footage of board that actually is installed. I
Hmm.
mean, people will deliver boards. Sometimes it's 50 boards heavy. So we always go after the hangers are done and whatever board footage they've installed is what we bill off of.
Right. Like whatever comes and
So
you deduct what's less off the bill kind of deal.
yeah, exactly. So if they hang 150 boards, that's what you get billed for.
Yeah,
On
perfect.
our end is you'll get billed for 150 boards of board footage finishing.
Right. Okay. And then
Yeah.
like short of it being specialty stuff, everything just gets clumped into that price.
Yeah. I mean, if we're doing some kind of like remodel or we're doing something where like it's repair, then we're doing time and materials because you can
Right.
lose your butt real fast on that stuff. So for those, we're always very upfront. We're like, this is the hourly rate, it's time and material. You don't get overcharged, we don't lose money, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, I've started implementing that. I had a bunch of sites that first year where it was like you gave them a board foot price, but now you're matching to existing, and
Yeah.
that's it's just you're not being paid for it. And but
Yeah.
there's kind of a part in you that doesn't want to complain either, right? Because you're working. But as
Yeah.
you mature
Well,
in
you
the
gotta make
business,
money.
that's the whole thing, right?
I mean, you
That's
don't
what
want to be working for free.
that's what we're all doing it for, right?
I know, right? Well, and the remodels will eat you. I mean, we've
Yeah.
been in some and you're like, it looks really straightforward from the surface. You get pictures, you're like, okay, sweet, that's great. I'm gonna come in, do bam, 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 and I'm out. And then you get into it and you're like, oh, okay, I did bam, but now the bam I was in, and now that's not gonna work because this did this, and it's just like you just never know.
Yeah.
So we always do those time and materials, so we're not losing, we're not working for free, and then we're not pissed off because we priced ourselves wrong. So
When I did my first episode with High Cut, Josh from High Cut Drywall,
yeah.
he referred to it as picking the scab, where
Yeah.
you know what I mean. You
Yeah.
you you went to do something and then it all just started falling apart
Oh,
because it's like,
yes.
oh, there's a surprise and that leads to this
Oh,
surprise and
yeah.
that leads to this
Or they
surprise.
tack stuff on like, oh, while you're here, can you do this too? Or, oh, I've got this problem here. Or,
Right.
oh, how much extra would it be for you to do this? And if you just price it T&M, then you're like, it's just my hourly rate plus the materials that it costs you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
then you can bid whatever you want. I mean, you can obviously price yourself hourly, whatever is fair.
mhm.
But it's just so many other trades that do that. And I don't know why sometimes people don't think about doing that for drywall. Obviously on new residential, it doesn't make sense. But if I call an HVAC guy to come fix my furnace, I know it's going to be an hourly rate of whatever it is they charge plus the materials.
Yeah, and typically with those other trades, they'll get there and go, you kind of need this and you kind of need that, and we can do it
Yeah.
today, but this is your price, and nobody ever thinks about it again. It's just like,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's like, my Uncle John can do this too, and maybe he
Yeah.
can't do the other stuff, but uh, real good hangers and finishers, the cousins and uncles, they're not good. Not to
Yeah.
that like
Well,
top tier of doing it, right?
yeah. I
Yeah,
think I think the ones that those of us that have been doing it for a long time, we make it look very easy and we make it look very effortless. And then it
definitely.
looks fun. Like I can pick up a knife and throw it on the wall and it'll look great.
Hmm.
Somebody else that doesn't have as much experience, they're not going to be able to do that. And they're going to be like, oh, well, you made it look so easy. Or one thing that we really don't do is we don't come in after a homeowner has started.
Yeah,
We've done that before, but it's just going to cost them so much more money than if they just would have called a professional in the first place.
yeah.
It's really hard to fix that stuff. We've done it before. We just don't mess with it anymore. Like Of course, there are situations like I'm planning on doing some, more in-depth YouTube videos and a series on doing flood repair, because I know
Okay.
so many people are in areas that have had pretty extensive flood damage, but there aren't enough people to come fix it. So the
Yeah.
homeowners have to fix it. So kind of doing a series on that to just kind of help and fill that void in of, yeah, okay, so, I've got a flood. I can't get anybody here for 3 years.
Hmm.
What am I supposed to do? And sometimes it just gets pushed into their hands. I don't think they necessarily want to, but if we as a drywall community can help people have better finishes
Hmm.
when maybe a finisher isn't available to come in and do it for them, I think that's something that can help a lot.
Yeah, especially out here, if you have a flood in your basement, the insurance guys will send somebody out. They'll get the air movers in there. They'll cut it up to 2 feet, and then it's like a lifetime before somebody comes back to put it back
Yeah.
together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in the States, we've had a lot of flooding. Like California just had a lot of extensive flooding, down south, like Louisiana, some of those areas, some
Hmm.
of the southern states have just had so much flooding, and there's just not enough tradespeople to come do it. Either that, or you get the ones that travel through, charge you a fortune, and then do a bad job.
I was just about to
So
say that.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So it's hard. I think it's hard for the homeowners. Like, of course, there's things where people are just being cheap, and that is a whole nother ball game. But when you're stuck in
Hmm.
a situation where you have something literally unlivable and nobody can fix it for you, and you gotta like have a little bit of a bleeding heart towards them.
Totally. Yeah, it's that kind of customer that's being cheap. I always say that there's a place for everything, right?
Yeah.
When I got started a long time ago, I was doing, this is what your materials are. We'll just double that, and that'll be my price to install it.
Oh,
So like a box of mud that's $30, I would apply it and sand it for $30.
oh,
It was crazy, but I didn't really know what
that's
I was
crazy.
doing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was the give and take of, I'm going to learn here. I'm not going to leave until it's done properly, but I don't know how long
Yeah.
it's going to take, and so on and so forth. But like people got mud rooms totally made in their house for $400
Oh
or
my God.
whatever.
They're like,
Oh
that's
yeah.
it. That's all you're charging? Are
I
you sure?
I had a guy
Okay.
the one time go, "Are you sure you don't want to do hourly?" And I was like, "No, I said what I do and we'll do it." And it was kind of nuts some of the looks that you'd get, but when things
Yeah.
went wrong, people were really cool about it because they're hardly paying you anything at all, right? So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yes.
but then now as a professional, looking back to the people that want that kind of an
Yeah.
experience, it's like then you got to go find a kid that doesn't know what he's doing. You know, like
Exactly.
you
I
can't be
know.
calling a big company.
Yeah. Yeah. For that price, you're not getting top tier work, and they have to accept that. Like, they have to know that. You would think they would know that.
Hmm.
Just like anybody, like if we bid a job and, we're higher than somebody else, we're higher for a reason,
Totally.
because we don't have callbacks. If we leave that smooth wall, there's not going to be us coming back in there and having 4 days of touch up. Like,
Yeah.
when we're done, and we'll put in the hours. And we might get to a point where we're kind of breaking even, but we're not going to leave you in a bad spot just because, we need to make money. And that's something that has been hard, because we do have such a high level of finish. Like, there's been smooth walls we've been on, and we're like, okay, we need to get it out of here, but we literally
Yeah.
can't, because we can't leave it. If it's not right, we can't leave it. So we just have to eat it, which sucks, but you live, you learn, and
Yeah.
then, next time you just try and manage your time a little bit better so that doesn't happen. But I think that's kind of a rare like mindset, especially
It
like you're
really
saying,
is.
like, okay, yeah. But there's those of us that are like, no, I'm not leaving this not done well, because I can't go home and be like, you just pay me for this and I gave you a crap job. That's on me. Like, it's
Yeah.
not your fault.
That's that ability to sleep at the end of the night. It's
Yeah.
I get a lot of like, why do you work so much and why does everything have to be so perfect? And like things are way overkill when I do them, but it's the same thing. I don't
Yeah.
want to come back. I don't
Exactly.
want to affect people's timelines because I have to come back. You know, you can absolutely build a reputation pretty quick if you're not doing good work.
Well, and it's
Um,
just pride. It's like, I want to walk in and I want to be like, dang, that looks really good. And I know I
mhm.
did my best on that. Does every job always get that? Sometimes it gets maybe a tier lower, just because of like things that are going on, like we have to have it done like tomorrow, and maybe I
Mhm.
didn't get as much time on that specific spot or thing that I wanted to spend time on. But I always try to do my absolute best And, sometimes you'll look at things and be like, oh, I need to move on to the next thing. And it's like, okay, well, really, that's maybe going to take me an extra 10 seconds. That extra 10 seconds is worth it to have a better finish in the end. And if I'm really at that point where a minute or two is going to be killing my profit, probably shouldn't be in the business.
Yeah, my cousin says things like that, where that first year I went and got a Hilti uh like the gun with the clips in it to hang
Oh,
drywall.
yeah, an auto feed.
Yeah, incredibly fast. And it
Yeah,
was what we needed. And I said,
yeah,
like these screws are like 4 or 5 times more than what a regular
they're
box of screws
expensive.
is. And he was like, if your material cost is what's killing you, you're not charging enough. Like
Yeah,
you know what
yeah,
I mean? Like it's very
yeah,
basic. If you're providing a better service, then you charge better for it. It just is what it is.
exactly.
Yeah, I think you hit it there when you said the higher tier people, like absolutely they're more expensive, but these are typically people that don't come after you for extras.
Yeah,
If something's wrong, they're going to fix it.
yes,
When you're making a good chunk of money on a bunch of sites, sometimes you got to lose. And
yeah.
as long as you're not losing every site, it's not like it's catastrophic to you, right? Yeah,
Well, I think it depends on what you view as a loss too. If you lose money, yes, that's a loss, but you don't want to lose your reputation. And I think that's more important than maybe making $1,000 less or something because you had to spend an extra day on site. And I think
absolutely.
once you have that mentality of, okay, I got to spend an extra day here. I don't want to spend this day, but it's going to make it that much better. The builder's going to be that much happier. The homeowner is going to be that much happier. And then my reputation is that much better because I took that time. And I hate this attitude of like, that's too slow. That's too slow. You got to move it. Go fast, fast, fast.
Yeah.
It's like, no, man. Like, yes, you can go at an acceptable speed. But if I am on a job and I decide that needs an extra 5 minutes, I'm going to give it an extra five
Mhm.
minutes. It
Absolutely.
doesn't hurt anything. And it's just this like
But that is what
speed
makes the
mentality.
difference, right?
Yeah,
That
exactly.
is the
Yeah.
difference.
Also make a
um,
difference from walking on a big commercial site like a hotel or something. And you're like, dang, dude, like that tile or that whatever looks
yeah.
like freaking crap. And it does because it's push, push, push. And like, yeah, like there's a time and a place for those mentalities, I guess. But working on customs, high-end homes, that's not the place for it.
Yeah, I think back to like some of the high rise work and that kind of stuff, and
Yeah,
like you are just flying through it because
yeah,
you're being paid
get
next
done.
to nothing on a linear foot base or whatever, right? So the
Yeah,
more you
yeah,
put up, the more you get paid, and if you've got corrections, sure, but the next guy's probably going to have corrections too, and the guy before you is gonna. So that level of perfect is way lower than like what you're
yes.
saying, a custom home or like a dealership or somewhere where aesthetics is a big deal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or someplace where they're willing to give you the space too. Cause I found with commercial jobs, especially they like to pile everybody on top of each other. And
Yeah.
that's probably one of the most frustrating things, like being a drywall finisher is when you're trying to do things and you've got the tile guy trying to set tile in the bathroom that you're supposed to be in and finishing, or you've got, the floor guys laying floors on. You're like, I gotta walk on this. Like I got
Hmm.
stilts on, man. Like I'm not taking those off to like booty my shoes.
Yeah.
So like all of those things like just kind of like roll downhill. And for us, commercial just doesn't make any sense. So we tend to do, we stick to residential. It's where we make money and it's where we have fun. And I think that's a big part of it too, is having fun.
I absolutely agree with that. That first year was like get the boombox started, you know what I mean? Get a little bit of
Yeah.
a dance, get a little bit of a dance
Yeah.
going and then
Absolutely.
get moving, right?
Yeah.
Um yeah, people that are focusing on wins and losses all the time, I just tell them I don't focus on wins or losses. At the end of the day, when I go to bed, I go, did I do my best today? And then if you did and you lost your ass, good, you still did your best. And
Yeah.
tomorrow's a new day, right?
Yeah.
You can get into this tailspin of we're losing, and everything starts to become negative, and that's when you stop having fun.
Oh,
And then
absolutely.
having fun shows in your work.
Yeah.
Any of the big names out there, when you're looking at their work, if you're watching them do it, they're having a lot of fun. Um,
Because it makes it enjoyable. I mean, like I love my job. I love that I can come to work. I can throw on whatever music I want. If I want to go get a coffee middle of the day, I don't have to ask anybody. I can do
yeah,
whatever the heck I want. I mean, of course, there's deadlines that need to be hit, but like I love it. I get muddy. I get to like play with power tools. We get to like do things with our hands. Like I couldn't imagine a more satisfying job. And every
Yeah.
day is like, I get to do this and I love it. It's like, of course, we all make money, which is good. We all need to
Hmm.
make money. But having something that's enjoyable and that you're passionate about and you get to make money from is like, the holy grail,
Yeah, none of this happened on purpose. Like I just kind of fell into it every step of the way until I started the business.
Yeah.
That was the first time where I was like, I'm now doing things that I enjoy on purpose. But
Yeah. Yes. You
prior
get
to
to
that,
choose.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
You do kind of have that like maximum level of option if you choice.
Yes. Yes.
Um, you want to talk brands, different brands of stuff?
Sure.
Do you have a favorite auto tool brand?
Um, so we have all of them
Yeah,
and
I
we have
figured that's
multiples of all of them because one thing that we do is we don't throw them away
yeah.
ever.
No.
So I actually have a super old tape tech that needs to get rebuilt, but I think it's probably oh man, probably a 16 or 17-year-old too.
Wow.
Um, so like I said, we don't throw them away. We always have a backup to the backup to the backup
Yeah.
because that's how we make our money. If we don't have one, we're not making money. Of course, we can hand tape, but the size of our jobs,
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. That would be stupid. Um, so I think they're all good. It kind of
Yeah.
depends on what you're looking for and how much you're looking to spend.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the trickiest parts. North Star is fantastic, but they're expensive and not everybody's going to want to plunk down close to $2,000 for an automatic taper,
Hmm.
especially if you're just getting into the game or maybe you're not using it that often. Like ours gets used every week. So for us, it's a necessity. We have to have this tool. It has to work right and it needs to be working well. So we have North Star, Columbia, the old tape tech. We don't have a new tape tech. We've got level 5, and I think
Hmm.
level 5 is great for the price. They're great. They have a really good warranty. If it
Yeah.
breaks, they'll fix it.
That
Which
that
is
was my
unusual.
first auto taper was I bought
Yeah.
the level 5 and I damaged it first day and I called
Oh
them.
no.
Oh yeah. And then I called them that day and the piece was in the mail like moments later.
Yeah. They're
Um,
really, and that's really unusual. People usually don't do that.
Yeah, I was shocked because I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, now what do I do? Because it's not like I had a lot of time on it. Like I didn't know how to
Yeah.
fix it
Yeah.
on site.
Oh yeah.
So luckily CSR is close enough. But
Oh sweet.
yeah, it's about an hour away. Anything that I
Oh,
do taping wise, I do through them. It's worth the hour
nice.
drive,
Yeah.
right? Like Eugene and the guys
I
out
wish we
there.
had a
They're
CSR. We don't have anything like that here in the States.
you really should. Everyone that I'm talking to from the States has the same kind of thing where,
Yeah.
CSR is a for tapers. No, I'm not speaking for them, but I mean, to me, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That last Black Friday event was more about meeting up with everybody than it was the deals.
Yeah. That looked
Uh,
fun.
it was amazing. It was so amazing. I thought that I was going to show up as like some nobody that was just going to be a fly on the wall, and everybody was
Yeah.
so happy that you were there, and lots of handshakes and pictures, and are you coming out to dinner with us? And
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
it was
It's
really
a
cool.
family. It's a community.
It's a community. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that really opened my eyes to the community. I knew that it was there, but I didn't know
Yeah.
that I was a part of it yet, I guess. And that was a big part of the podcast too, is just getting everybody together a little bit more,
Well, we're kind of
little
weirdos. Like
bit closer.
we can sit and talk about drywall for like hours and hours and hours and not get sick of it. And I think finding people that are like-minded like that is like few and far between. So when you do find people that are like, oh yeah, so we can talk about like drywall finishing for like 8 hours and not get sick of it, like you're like, hey, I like you.
Yeah,
Let's hang out, And
yeah,
it's just kind of like most people are like, what, can you just tell me how to fix that patch, man? And like
yeah.
getting into those really fun conversations, because for most of us that have been in this for a long time, it's like your passion, it's
Hmm.
not just work anymore. It's you love it and you love the craft and you want to get better and you want to, just you just love it.
It kind of becomes your hobby. Like
Yeah.
I think about car guys where they'll go to
Yes.
a car meet and talk about cars for a
Yes.
weekend.
Forever. Yes.
The same thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I find what I do on the taping side of everything and well, the rest of it too, but mostly the taping is it's enjoyable. It's a hobby.
It is.
I like to do it. It's fun to talk about. You know, you're not quite comparing stats, but like, you know, what do you do when you get to this part? And then somebody's gonna go, oh, I do this, and you'd never heard of it before, and you get
Yep.
excited, right? Yeah.
Well, and the
Yeah.
fun thing is you'll say one way and then somebody else will be like, oh, but I do it that way. And then you're like, oh, I never thought about that. Or like,
Yeah.
huh, I tried it that way once, but it didn't work. And then they'll probably be like, oh, it's because you weren't doing X, Y, Z. Or like,
Hmm.
it's just awesome because, we all have different ways, but it all turns out perfect in the end.
Yeah.
It's so many ways to get there and they're all right.
One of the things that happened with Josh's podcast is he was saying we'll bag up our tools at the end of the day if you're going to use it tomorrow instead of leaving it in the water or having to clean
Yeah.
it. And he folds back paper and then sends it through. And
Okay.
then in the morning, he just gives it a pull. So if anything
Yeah.
dried in there, it's gone.
Yep.
And I'd never even thought of that, but it's just
Yeah.
something that he does every day. It's really, really neat. Are you guys finding, like more level 5 finishing stuff like Fresco Harmony just got here
Okay.
last month and
Nice.
it's been available in the States for a long time. It sounds like down in Albuquerque it's huge.
Yeah.
We're going to start to see it a little more now. Are you seeing anything like that where you are, or is it
It
pretty
on the
well?
very, very high end jobs, it will go
Mhm.
plaster, but
Yeah.
I actually know a local guy. We've known each other for a really long time.
Hmm.
He has New Age Artisans, and
Okay.
he's doing super high end though. He's up in the Yellowstone Club on, $20 million houses. So
Wow.
typically on those, the taping crew will come in, finish to about a level 3,
Yep.
and then they'll come in after everything's installed. So after the flooring's installed, after the trim's up, after the cabinets are in, everything's in, and then they come in and install their plaster. Um,
Wow.
so totally different. And I want to get him, I need to do some stuff with him on the build show with kind of showing his process. And
Hmm.
he'll also do Tadillac. So that's the shower plaster. So it makes you put it in
Oh,
your showers and it's completely waterproof. It's a very old system. It's like Turkish, I think, or something. So,
okay.
but that's kind of what's popular here. So it'll be, I can't remember the plaster company, but it's like Venetian veneer.
Yep.
There are a couple crews that actually do old school. So they'll come in and do mesh everything and then plaster over the top too. But most of that stuff's
Okay.
up in the Yellowstone Club because that's the level of people that can afford it because
Totally.
I don't even know what you're at a square foot with that sort of stuff because the
It,
materials are expensive. You got to have big crews that you're running. So a totally different beast, but
hmm That's kind of what was so attractive about the Fresco Harmony is it has all the
yeah,
colors and it's mud.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
it's not kind of the end of the world and you can do it for a couple of bucks a square foot or whatever, as opposed
yeah,
to
yeah. Compared to this other stuff that,
it's
you're
insane.
paying a
Yeah.
lot for your materials and then you need to also make sure you have a big enough crew that you're not having cold joints and you're not having issues with the plaster and you got to book it. Um, so yeah, we don't get into that stuff. Like maybe somebody was like, hey, can you do a fireplace for me?
Mhm.
Sure. An accent wall, you got it.
Yeah.
Whole house, no.
No. Well, but
I
that's
am
not
not set up to do that.
it's not what you do.
Yeah,
That would be like me asking you to frame my house. It's the
yeah,
same thing, right? It's not what
yeah,
you're
yeah,
proficient at.
exactly. Yeah. Plaster
Yeah.
is a different beast. Fresco Harmony is different,
Yeah.
which is awesome because you can still get that look, but without all of the stress, I would say, about
Yep.
plaster. 'Cause something goes wrong and you're sitting there like, oh my God, crap.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
crap, crap, crap.
And then what do you do?
Yeah,
That's
exactly. And then you're like, oh my God, crap, 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 crap.
do you have a favorite thing to do on site? So like flats or butts or corners or corner bead
I
or
love corner bead.
same.
Tape day. Tape day is probably my favorite day, like when we're wiping tape.
Yeah.
Love tape day. And then corner bead. I love coating corner bead. It's my
Yeah.
favorite. You kind of like get in a rhythm and it's just super calm. And you just like throw on your favorite music as loud as you can, whip up your
Hmm.
bucket. So for me, I'll like throw on whatever I'm in the mood for. And then I'll whip up my bucket, throw it up on a trigger, jump on my stilts,
Yep.
and then load up my pan and then go hit all my high stuff and just like sing along and just kind of work and have my
Yeah.
flow. Oh, those are my favorite days. And I'll challenge myself too. I'm like, okay, I gotta go in an hour. Can I get 66 done in 66 done? Okay,
Yeah.
go, and I'll
Yeah.
like, just like, okay, woo, woo, woo. And then I'll be like, yes, got 66 in an hour, and I'm like, and then some days it's way more relaxed. I don't have to, go somewhere or do something, and I can take my time and just kind of enjoy it a little bit more. So
You're doing a lot of fast edge, right? Like no coat.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. Actually, Clark Dietrich makes some really cool stuff. I have a stick of it. I got a couple of sticks at Home Depot. But they have some that actually they have like a metal strip in the center of them.
We have those. Yeah.
Yeah, which are really cool. So we're gonna be working with those the next couple days. It's kind of usually whatever's available.
Okay.
What we can find. Sometimes you can't find certain products. I don't think our local dealer sells Fast Edge yet. He's been trying to get it in, but we can buy No Coat, Clark Dietrich, paper face metal, which we don't really use. So if we're gonna do something, we're typically going for a tape on composite, unless some of the high-end stuff we get into, everything has to match, like it's non-negotiable, and the framing does not match. So then we'll actually move to a metal corner bead, so old school metal, because it's so manipulative. We can snap a line or have a laser and make it bend so that it follows that line and build out mud. So it really is kind of, depends on the job.
For sure. I'm typically using that Trimtex plastic bead. I just really like it. I do that, and then I fiber fuse the edge over the staples, and just I've got a whole process. It works kind of perfect. But then I take a look at the fast edge stuff, and I'm like, that is just so fast, and it still looks really good. Yeah,
I think people are starting to come more towards the composite bead side. I mean, no coat is not new. And what's funny is when I install it or install some of these tape on ones, they're like, why are you using 325 on an outside corner? I'm like, no. This is not a straight flex or a no coat 325 or a fast, the new fast edge roll. Like those are completely different products. These are actually corner bead products made to be corner bead. And I think some people are just like, no, metal is the only way to go. But when you do a smash test, man, and you smash these beads, no, it's not, like metal gets destroyed. I can't even tell you how many jobs I've walked in and been like, oh no, that was metal corner bead. And you can tell right away because of the way that it dents and it dings and it still has its place. Like we'll still use it, but when it comes down to it, I'd much rather use a composite, but it all comes down to framing.
Well, and there's no cutting it out and replacing it. That whole bead's coming off.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's devastating sometimes where
it's a lot more work.
Yeah, I think so too. It's interesting to hear that you're still using the metal, because there's a part of me that learned it, and it was my favorite for a long time. But like your fingers are all cut, and you know what I mean? Those little burrs and
I know. Well, then we put ours on with the compressor, so you're wearing, earplugs or trying to, and we've started wearing safety glasses because you can get metal slivers in your eyes. Ryan's had it happen twice, and I'm just like, why do you just wear that? I've never had it happen, thankfully, but you have to be careful and mark where your screws are, because when you use a staple gun, you don't want to hit a screw and have it turn back around and come at you. So but yeah, we typically only do it on things that have to match up very particularly, and there's no other way to do it other than metal bead.
And that's kind of why I'm using the plastic bead. But you're right with the manipulation. You're not going to be doing that with plastic.
Well, it's soft. That's why it's so easy. But you can hold it, tack it, and make it do the exact line that you want to. When it comes to some of these composites, you're trying to hold it off the wall, but it won't do it. It'll blister and you'll get air pockets back behind there. So it still has its place. We still use it occasionally. Obviously around fireplaces, you want to be using metal, no plastics, no composite. Showers will typically do plastic or a composite, something like that out there with an edge that's not going to rust. But we've never even had metal bead rust. They all have coatings on them now. So
yeah, for sure. So what kind of staples are you using? Are they just little like quarter-inch staples?
They're big. So it is a Brad stapler, and they're 1.25 inches long.
Wow. Okay.
5/8 inch crown, I believe. I always
Okay.
have to write down when I go buy a box. And I'm always like, which box was that again? I have to make sure I get the right staples. But yeah, it's a big, like a nail stapler, not
Okay.
nail, staples.
Yeah. So like you're hitting the wood.
Yes,
Yeah. That's
it's going
key.
all the way in. Yeah, that bead is not going anywhere ever.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we'll do that on soffits and windows that have to come together, fireplaces, stuff like that. So,
I stopped doing window returns. I'll build a
oh,
box. Yeah, I'll build a nice custom box and put it in there with wood or
that's
something.
nice. Oh
Yeah,
man.
because
See,
I hate,
everything,
just hate it so much.
the really high end stuff here is all going to full wrap. So
Really?
it's actually what's really gotten popular is a full wrap and then just a sill on top of the bottom ledge. So you still have to wrap the entire thing, finish the whole outside of the window, and then they put in a very custom sill just on the bottom ledge, but just on the bottom inside.
Wow. And just as like an accent or like,
Yeah, I think it just so it doesn't look like it's a full wrap. So you
yeah,
have that seamless look on the outside, but then you still have the wood piece on the inside.
yeah, that's neat.
But it's a
I,
pain.
when Brad did his basement, he did that shadow bead everywhere. Do
Yeah.
you do much of that?
No, we haven't really run into
Yeah.
it. It hasn't. I want to though, because it looks really intense, but also beautiful.
Yeah. It's when I went over there so when he bought that house, I went and saw him, and then I think the next time I saw him was like a year later.
Oh
Like
wow.
we're both super busy. So
Yeah.
you get down there and then you start to see some of the work that he's been doing, and it's just like, oh my God, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of beers, he'll tell you how much time it took.
Yeah. Yeah, I know,
But
right?
that
Like it's
like
beautiful, but yeah.
the magic
Oh,
goes away when you know.
yeah. You're like, oh, I don't think I love it that much.
Yeah, I'd really like to do that. Oh, never mind. Yeah.
Well, what's funny is I was with Travis and Joe with we were at the Fine Building house because they're building that house and the
Okay.
drywallers were in there and we are talking about touch up and stuff and they're like, well, the architects are all specing level 5, but that's the first thing to go off the plate when it comes to the homeowner. That's
Totally.
the first thing to get cut. And I understand why, because it's expensive and it's a lot of
Mhm.
work, but man, when we look at our environments, the majority of our homes are walls.
Yeah.
Like 3/4. I mean, and it's just it kind of baffles me sometimes when people are like, no, I can't spend that extra 5 grand. But give me that really expensive marble. It's going to be out of style in 10 years and I got to rip up my kitchen.
Yes.
So it's kind of funny how people are so quick to spend money on cosmetic things, but your walls are cosmetic.
Yeah.
They're functional and they serve a purpose, but they're also very, they have a lot of aesthetics to them.
Yeah, it's a little bit wild when people see that little bit of a price tag on a specific thing and they're shocked by it,
Yeah,
but they've
right.
got a $10,000 fridge
I know, right? It's like,
or
really?
whatever. To each their own for sure. But yeah, I also kind of think maybe you don't see it as a customer as much as if you were in the trade, right? So maybe that
Yeah,
is what it is too.
definitely. Well, and I think drywallers are probably really bad at upselling. We're just kind of
Oh,
like, tell us what you want, and we'll just do it, like whatever. So for us, and they're sitting down with the contractor deciding on the finishes too, when it
mhm.
gets to that level. But I think there needs to be, some education between us being the finishers and then educating the builders on the back end. Like, actually, they probably should pay for level 5 in this area, and this area.
Yeah.
Maybe not all of it, but or maybe you should do some plaster here, you should do this here. So just kind of communication, just opening that communication line up, I think still has a long way to go.
Yeah, there is this kind of like do level 5 everywhere because that's what the best is. And then there's
Yeah,
also this, you're going to want to do it here for this reason and this reason and this reason. And then it just makes
yeah,
sense, right? You got a
yeah,
lot of natural light or whatever is going to be happening. That makes sense.
yeah,
But like you said, it's kind of not everyone's forte if you're the one doing the work too. It's
yeah, yeah,
typically if you're good at one thing, you're not good at everything.
yes.
So, well, this has been a blast. I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, anytime. Do you have any shout outs or anything you want to do?
I don't think so. I just want to encourage people, like, be nice to each other. There's a lot of different ways to do things. Just because it's not your way doesn't mean it's wrong.
Mhm.
Hawk and trowel, knife pin, we're all doing the same thing, just different ways to do it. Let's all just be nice to each other.
Yeah, treat everyone the same. That's our second part of the motto. It's
Yeah.
we're all doing the same thing, right? Or at least we're all trying to.
Yes.
Yeah, I even when people start with that you're doing things wrong, I always thank them after the message back and forth of like, obviously you know what you're doing, and I appreciate the comment, because sometimes you read things wrong too. But
Yeah.
it's even if someone's being shitty, I like to kind of kill them with that little bit of kindness. You know what I mean?
Oh
Because
yeah,
if
it goes a
they
long way. Yeah. Or
and if
I'll
they
explain myself. Like, okay, you
yes,
might not, you're looking at this from one way, but I'm actually on the job doing it, and this is the best outcome for me personally to get the outcome that I want. So I have to do it this way. And I
right,
think once you start explaining that, people are like, "Oh, sorry," and it's like, "Well, guys, like, stop jumping to conclusions." There
yeah.
we go. Everybody just be nice for a little bit.
I color my mud when I run the throttle box.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because when I
You
was
can
running them
see.
before, you see the full coat. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
see how quickly you picked that up.
Oh yeah. Well, we know
Everybody
because you
else is
can
like,
see
what are you
that's
doing?
no, I've heard of, like, especially if you're having trouble running the angles or angle boxes,
Yeah,
that way you can tell and you can see where there's gaps in your mud, because white
yeah,
on white, you're not going to see it.
yeah.
You run a color, that white's flashing through immediately. Yeah, it's whatever works best.
Yeah. And when it's a nice clean coat like that and the customer sees it, or like other people
Yeah,
see it on the internet, they're like, that looks really clean. And it
I know,
it kind
right? Yeah.
it kind of does, right? Yeah.
Well, the color is actually kind of fun. We ran a whole bucket one day, and we were like, this is kind of cool. It was kind of like made it a little like you could see your shoulders on your board a lot
Yeah.
better.
Yep.
They were like screaming at you after you ran the box. You're like, oh, that is a shoulder big time.
Yeah.
And you could see imperfections a little bit easier, which I was like, huh, wasn't really expecting that, because everything's white on white on white. So,
Yeah. I did all my corner bead too. So my inside and outside
um,
corners on this last house, I did in a color. And just like you said, and on the corner bead, it was like very clear where the issues
yes,
were.
yeah.
And it was neat. And then it's fun too, right? So that's
Yeah,
good.
not
Okay.
hurting anything, just color. It's
So
okay.
drywall shorty on basically everything. Are you on TikTok?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, me too. Yeah.
I know. I don't really like it, but
Do
I
you feel
love it.
super old when you're doing it?
I do. I
That's
do.
me
And I'm
too.
just like, I don't want to dance. I don't want to do it. It's like not what I'm here to do, you know? And
Yeah.
it's, yeah, I
I,
feel old.
I put little snippets on there, but I don't get into the hashtags too much, and like
Yeah.
the like it's not Instagram, and I got to keep telling myself that.
I'm kind of waiting for it to get canceled, to be honest. I'm kind of like, I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll see what happens, but
It's like super baggy jeans, we all did
I
it.
know.
And now it's
Well, all
gone,
the
and that's
90s stuff
okay.
that's coming back, butterfly clips,
Yeah.
crop tops, wide leg jeans, I don't know, whatever.
I kind of love seeing it because I enjoyed it so
Yeah.
much, but I will not be partaking this go around.
I know, right? Like, I'm too old for that and I already did it. Move on.
Awesome. So for everybody listening, if you've not seen all of Lydia's content, you need to, especially if you've got specific questions. She has specific stuff to look at. YouTube's probably the best place for that, but
Yeah.
getting like a real quick idea of what's going on, your Instagram feed's fantastic for that. You just kind of swipe
Well,
through it and then go, yeah, I want to know more about that, over to YouTube.
awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate
Yes.
it. I think everybody will have appreciated it. So that's really fun. And
Yeah.
we'll close it off. Be humble, treat everyone the same, and do your fucking job.